Good evening, welcome. Get the meeting underway.
Subject to your rules and regulations.
Russell, did you get sworn in?
No, I didn't. Try.
So you're still an associate?
Yep.
Very good. First, anybody recording? Make it known, please. Thank you. I will call the meeting to order. First item is the minutes of, I don't know if you had a chance to review them through the
I read it.
online. If anyone is anyone
Do you
other
need a
than Mike?
motion? I'll say, I read them last week when she put them out.
I know I read some of them, but I think she put out more since then.
I don't think so.
Is everyone comfortable with addressing the minutes at this time, or
Entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Second.
any particular date there? I think what'd she say about August 24th? Mike?
24th is not there. July 13th, July 27th, August 10th.
Okay. Motion was made. Was there a second?
There was a second on Richard.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an executive session. Next item of business is an approval not required plan for lots 1032, 1033, 1041, 42, and 1035. 4, 6, 9, and 11 Shell Lane and 5 Over Jordan Road, care of TJP Realty, care of Cape and Islands Engineering. Is anyone?
These are the Mylar for this.
Okay, good.
From you.
For the record, Matt Costa, Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant. We're here tonight with their approval not required plan to create 2 building lots and 2 non-buildable lots for conveyancing purposes. The 2 building lots front on Shell Lane, it's a gravel way. The lots conform as drawn to zoning requirements for the R60 zone. Minimum lot area is 60,000, 180 feet of frontage. That's it in a nutshell. Happy to answer any questions.
Do you have information that suggests the suitable width, grade, and construction of Shell Lane for adding the frontage and access?
Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
Do you have information on suitable width, grade, and construction of Shell Lane for access?
Well, it's a existing gravel way that's about 14 feet in width. We didn't do any details of that gravel way, if that's what you're asking. There is another house further down to the north, I believe, on Shell Lane.
George, there's a hand up in the back.
I'm not familiar with Shell Lane.
I have to admit, I'm not either.
I mean, I've been down Lydia's Island Road as far as I can without getting in too much trouble, but is Shell Lane the one that has a chain link fence right next to it? Does that ring a bell? Right in this area, right?
Oh, yes, there is a chain link fence that runs parallel with it.
Right here.
Yep, yes. It could use some clearing of the shoulders. It looks like it's probably been some time since anyone's done that.
So the lots that we're talking about would be right in here, correct?
Those would be the two non-building lots. To your left and a little bit towards Great Neck would be where the, yep, right in there. Those were the two,
The two
Current-
main ones.
yes.
Then these two smaller
The
ones,
two building lots, correct.
32A and 33A, are two lots, but they're deemed not buildable?
Correct. It's just for access to the water.
So I'm unclear on the requirements. I'm pretty sure it's a private road. In terms of, what'd you call it, form?
Form A, you have to find that it has suitable width, grade, and construction as a private way. Or that it was approved as a subdivision road recently.
I gotta go see it again.
Yeah, I would say, I would think we'd need some details on the road before we could consider access.
Yeah, and isn't it something that we ask the fire department to look at as well? Now granted, there's a home down on the end of that road now. You can see it right here.
Yep. But that's kind of similar to the question of access with, what was Mr. Nazi's project?
Yeah.
There was a house down
Stagecoach Road.
Old Stagecoach, yeah. This is kind of the similar thing. There's a road down past where the proposed building is, but the question of suitable access was still raised.
Now, the question before we go too far here is, how many more houses are gonna go in the back piece of that land eventually? So in other words, you're talking almost, probably, could be a full-blown subdivision in here, right?
I'm not aware of any more houses being proposed on Shell Lane.
Well, I guess what I should say, we're assuming that you're not, but that could change tomorrow, right?
Well, I think the only other houses that could go on Shell Lane would be where the existing ones are. It looks like there's only really one parcel left that would be suitable as a building lot. And I believe that has that structure on it. So I don't think you could have any more houses being accessed off of Shell Lane beyond where these proposed lots are. See, these actually touch Lydia's Island Road, so it's right at that fork.
So what I'm hearing is you'd like to do a site visit, is that accurate?
Pardon me?
You would like a site visit to
Yeah,
determine
I want an expert to
with
tell
grade
us.
and construction?
I want someone who's smarter than I am to tell me if that road's okay and if we can get fire down there.
Is it possible that, Charlie, you could go on the site visit with us to give us your opinion of the road?
If that's the board's wish, sure.
I'd be comfortable with that.
Me too.
Who has rights in that road right now, on Shell Lane?
I'm sorry?
Who has rights on there?
I would say the folks on the end, anyway.
Well, I see 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 different parcels right off the bat. You know, strangest things have happened, and, yeah, definitely a site visit's called for. Can we plan it on a low tide so we can scratch for some cohogs in there while we're in there? You know, we weren't allowed to shellfish down in that area before.
If you're in the water, you can do it anyway.
Not in Lydia's Island area. That's no man's land.
Let's see, this is just submitted. So we have,
This was submitted on September 2nd,
so we have, what is it?
21 days. So that would be September 23rd.
Well, you can see up there that it looks like there's 2 homes down there already. Here, number 12, and here, number 8.
Right.
And the new lots would be formed in the general areas here of 4 and 6. So we can get a visit done within before the next meeting, can't we?
You can give the visit, but you won't have time for the decision unless the applicant extends
I
time.
was gonna say,
That won't be a problem.
it'd be nice to,
Okay,
That won't be a
And-
problem, no.
then you'll have time.
Good. Appreciate that.
So, motion to continue to the,
28th.
glad you got the book.
Matt, can you write out a note to that effect,
Yeah.
just so that the board's got it?
Sure. And if Charlie has any recommendations, would it be okay if we were to communicate with Charlie or perhaps through staff to get those recommendations prior to the next hearing?
I would prefer that you work directly with Charlie. Is that all right?
I know Mr. Costa, so we can work direct.
Is that okay with the rest?
shoot with me.
Do you have a form for him to sign, Ken, or did we just scratch something on a piece of paper?
Need a piece of paper, Matt?
What would you like this to say exactly?
That the time for approval is extended to September 29th.
Mr. Chairman, just a question. On the Form A, it says it was stamped into the town clerk on September 10th, so do you really need that extension?
My application says it was stamped in September 2nd.
Okay, that's to your office, but the town clerk got a copy on the 10th. Just asking. No, the extension's fine if you want to do it that way.
I think we cover ourselves with the extension to the, I don't know why there's a difference in date, but the furthest out date is September 2nd, so I would play on that.
Okay.
So September,
Did we not determine that it reads the date it's submitted to this board?
I believe that's correct, George. Yeah.
So,
But if.
That
if
would
you-
be
if you
tonight.
go and for whatever the extension's worth, if you're willing
it
to. go
doesn't hurt to
ahead.
do it, yeah.
This is a good insurance policy.
so just to confirm, what date would you like me to put?
September 29th. The zoning article has been withdrawn.
This,
Yes,
oh,
so
okay,
maybe better make that announcement now.
okay, because I was gonna try and get that one out of the way first. Good. Thank you for that. Do we want to set a date and time for this visit? Or do it on our own schedule?
We can go together.
Yeah, I see, especially if Charlie's gonna come along.
Yep.
I'd like to be there.
What's good? Do we know at this point, or do you want to work that out?
Charlie, could you just work out a good date for you and let us know?
I'm flexible, so you guys pick a date. I'll be there.
Any night after, I gotta come from Cranston, so any night after 5 is okay with me, or Saturday morning.
Is there a preference, anyone?
I think Saturday will probably be more convenient for everybody, right? Fits in easier.
That works.
What, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 3 a.m.?
We said Saturday morning, not Saturday afternoon.
I said 3 a.m., just to give us covered, if you want. When's the peak mosquito hour?
I'm okay with 9.
9 good?
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Okay, 9 o'clock Saturday morning.
That's this Saturday, right?
Correct.
Where we're gonna meet at?
I don't know how much room is down there, but
Well, we can block up Lily's Allen Road, I'm sure. The O'Briens won't mind.
There isn't adequate room to park on Shell Lane.
how can Great Neck and walk in, how far in?
It's a very short walk from Great Neck.
Yeah, so we'll meet at the end of Lydia's and walk in.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Very good. Thank you. All right, next is a approval not required plan for lots 111-1000H and 112-1000 with lot S111 1000F. For 140 Tyonet Road, Wareham, for Borrego Solar Systems.
You want to make the announcement on the zoning?
Hmm?
You want to make the announcement on the zoning?
Oh, if you're here for the proposed zoning article for the new hospitality district, that has been withdrawn, will not be on town meeting warrant. So.
How you doing, Jim?
I think there's two there.
George, you know how to clear a room.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I know they've postpone the solar projects, but the A and R is still before us. Is there anyone here to?
Did we receive any kind of documentation about the changes that we had discussed?
This is not the site plan on the solar. This is just moving lot lines, it looks like.
Lot lines for sale of the property will be used for the solar farm.
Yep.
Is it just this back line, Ken?
The change in the line would be the back line, yes. And what they're doing is reaffirming the frontage. The frontage on Tyhona Road.
Is that new?
That I don't know.
When did they continue the site plans to?
2 weeks to the 28th.
Think we should reserve this so they're here for an explanation?
Yeah, it'd be nice for somebody to come and tell us what all this means.
That may have been their intent, but they just forgot the A and R.
George, just looking at this, there's a couple of questions I would have on it. They're saying there's supposed to be lot lines to be removed. If they're combining parcels to make one piece for the solar farm, then you should have made it as one parcel and not continue to show the parcels as they exist and say they're going to be taken away. So you've got that by the road lot line that's down in the south end, and you've got 2 lines that are supposed to be removed up on the north, sort of an L-shaped line there. If the intent was to combine those by this plan, they're not doing it by continuing to show the lines. And the second thing I would question is that little extension that comes off of Tyhonet Road. It's almost as if you're defining a layout there. That has no layout. So the only way you create a layout is through a subdivision, so.
I don't
think-
remember that being on the original plan.
I don't recall that it was.
Is that the existing dirt road that's here now, Charlie? It looks like.
Maybe, it may be a dirt road, and perhaps the boundary should be going actually right out to Tyhonet Road from there. Because that's one reason, if you recall on the plans that Bill Madden's office did, we asked them to define where the actual road line was, because the boundaries are by the road. The Tyhonet Road beyond the village doesn't have a layout. So to create a layout by these new lines that are labeled L1, L2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, that's not accurate. That's a subdivision.
Charlie, I apologize, but I'm not following the point you're making. I'm not arguing. I'm not
That one or
following.
the previous one? No, you see in the middle of the sheet, this little L shape, or this little projection here?
Yeah,
All right. Unless that has what he's attempting to do is to define that by a layout that runs around that road. And stopping the
Sure, but
boundary
that
there.
looks like the former Rod and Gun Club driveway in that
No, that's
vicinity.
further down.
Is it further down?
Rod and Gun Club's way up here. See this little figure
Oh,
on
I
the
didn't
thing?
see, yep.
That's
you're
that road after the Heaven Run that cuts across, goes to Tweedy and Barnes or O'Connor's. This road road goes like this and it snakes through the woods and it goes back towards 25.
Okay, yep, I didn't see
There
that.
is-
I
there
didn't
is a
see
ro-
the building there.
Yeah, there's actually a road there, yeah. Because this is the Heron Run right here, where the marsh grass is, and that road is just above it. Matter of fact, when it goes out here, there's several roads that cut across there, that parcel.
So that,
Alright,
that leaves that little
should-
projection out there is, I don't know really what it means. Typically, that would be a layout if you're gonna draw lines like that. But the boundary should be, if they wanna create the boundary as going by that road, then they ought to run it right out to the center of the road and be done with it. But these other lines that are on there, if their attempt is to combine parcels A, B, and C for a total area, then they ought to show it as a single lot and not continue to show it as separate pieces. What they're doing is combining it by this plan, but showing the plan this way doesn't do it. It maintains them. So I think that probably the assessor's office would continue to show the lots just they exist. So they ought to take those lines out. They can show them as dashed lines if they want to and say form a lot line. I have no problem with that. But that would make it much clearer that they're combining all these pieces.
Based on what Charlie is saying regarding that stub off of Tyonet Road as being a subdivision, I would say reject the plan as being, showing a subdivision of land and not an approval not required type of subdivision. And we can address it later.
The other option would be to continue to the next meeting and let them explain it and then deny it.
Well, they can resubmit it again.
Yeah, they could withdraw it, then you don't have to actually give them a denial so long as you've got time between now and the next meeting.
I'll hold the submittal to the town clerk until they respond.
What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
I guess we're gonna send it back and have them fix it, huh?
When was it submitted, Ken?
On the 10th.
On the 10th? So you got
It was stamped
21,
by the town clerk on the 10th as well.
okay, so you got 21 days from there, so you've got plenty of time between now and the next meeting.
All right. Thanks, Zach.
Moving right along, as I stated a little bit ago, the proposed zoning article for the hospitality, recreation, and entertainment district has been withdrawn. And the next item, we have continued public hearing for master millwork, 55 Charlotte Furnace Road, care of GAF Engineering.
You have copies of a revised plan and a revised draft decision to consider.
Is this set the revised?
If it's dated revised through September 2nd, those are the revised plans. In the revisions, I'm Bill Madden from GAF here on behalf of Master Millwork. The revisions focus primarily on a couple of items that we spoke in detail of. One of them, at the suggestion of Mike King, I prepared a sketch plan that I submitted to Ken on the week of the last hearing for circulation, indicating a driveway that links the service entrance to the main parking lot and what have you. And it turns out that it seemed to be a pretty good idea. It worked out fairly well on the plan. So what the plan that's on the board before you shows the shaded area of driveway that now intersects our 30-foot wide service drive and extends to the existing employee associate parking lot that's in the front of the building. In addition to making that connecting link, we're able to increase the buffer yard from Charlotte Furnace Road to that driveway to about 120 feet at its narrowest point. So what we did there, you'll see that I'll show you also on another plan, but there's a circular area there to the west that we thought that it could be wise to raise that area up a little bit, make a raised berm, and then landscape it and plant it. That would help as a screening methodology to screen some of our service area from the public way. And if you look to the right side of the driveway, there's also a 30-inch high berm that was proposed to be, that we now propose to place there and plant that as well as an additional landscaping feature to further provide some buffer from Charlotte Furnace Road. I think it worked out very, very well. It didn't really result in too many changes to the plan other than incurring pretty substantial cost to tear out the old driveway, replace it with suitable material to conduct the landscaping, build that berm and plant it. But as you can see, when we get to the landscaping plan, you'll see that it is, I think, the best alternative for accessing the parking areas on the site. Disappointed that we didn't think of that first, but we're always too happy to work to a solution through something. So anyway, that was really the major thing of the plan. Also, there was some discussion as to buffer along the south property line. And so where our landscaping ends, which is about 240 feet, running from Charlotte Furnace Road east against that 10-foot landscape buffer. Beyond that, to the corner of the property, we showed a 6-foot stockade fence as well for both visual screening and some noise attenuation. So those were, as I recall, those were really the two major issues that we talked about relative to the site plan. I did look a little further into lighting. There was some discussion as to how we might want to mitigate the lighting. And I think that there's, the bylaw is pretty specific on lighting. I actually looked into that. And there's a prohibition for some light uses between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. within the bylaw. And there's also a provision in the bylaw to provide dimming between those hours where you need security or something to that effect, and limit the foot candles on the ground to an average of a half a foot candle. And I think that if you look at our plan that we show there, under the full lighting scenario, we basically have much less than a half a foot candle at the perimeter of the property. I think that by dimming it and the automated controls that can be put into the building, that it's an easily solved issue to comply with. So we don't have anything to say other than we're willing to do that as well. Or it's not really our decision. It would be your decision to incorporate that as a condition, but we're happy to comply with that. So those were really the two major elements on the site plan review. You might recall we did talk about a lot of other things at the meeting, but I think the meat and potatoes of the thing as it relates to the site plan review was how to make the site plan better, what improvements can we make to blend it better with the neighborhood. I think we've achieved that through good suggestions of the planning board, and that's where we are today. There was one additional comment that was made. I met with Dave Menard on Friday. Dave was concerned about the cut that we're going to have to place in Charlotte Furnace Road for the additional fire protection service that the fire department wanted for the building. And I think that, I agree with him that we could move it further to the north on Charlotte Furnace Road and operate within the same patch area that exists in the pavement now. But it might be more prudent to wait to see what the fire protection engineer designs for the building, because I'm not so certain that that existing service that provides water to the site would not be suitable to protect the entire building. I think that there's a pretty strong likelihood that that existing 6-inch line, or whatever size it is, would be adequate. I don't see where you would need much more than that for fire protection of that building, understanding a little bit about fire protection.
At least to the point where you wouldn't have to open the road.
Correct. And if we did have to add another service, we could do it within that trench patch area. Then there would only be one trench patch area on Charlotte Furnace Road, and then we would just simply interconnect that piping to what we already have shown in the plan. So it's not really a major change. I think it's something that, you know, in the event that it comes to something, maybe we could deal with that at the time, because, I mean, that's pretty far down the road.
Are they gonna do a better job patching it than they did last time?
Well, I don't know if it was that bad of a job patching. I thought Dave said that he had him come back and redo it. I think the controlled density fill that was placed in that trench might not have been placed properly, or maybe it wasn't placed at all originally, but according to Dave, he just would like to have one disturbed area on the road. And I guess there's a water line being installed further up on the west side of Charlotte Furnace right now. I'm not certain what it's for, but he mentioned to me that he saw some piping being installed, but not really any, doesn't have any bearing on what we're talking about.
Mr. Chairman, I received an email from David Menard today regarding the application, and he says, after review with GAF, we came together on entranceway. I would still need the board to put in a clause for all and any road work that must be approved by the Municipal Maintenance Department. Thanks. Dave Menard, Director of Municipal Maintenance.
Yeah, we did talk about the serviced road and, you know, what our thoughts were about how it's orientated in a manner to direct the stop traffic that would be taking a left-hand turn onto Charlotte Furnace Road to improve upon the conditions that exist today at the driveway. And further, from the existing building, there is a fence that's installed from the corner of the existing building, basically to the end of the septic system where the toe of our berm is going to be. So it would provide good continuity, I think, for that band of 120, 130 feet from Charlotte Furnace Road to that larger service area in the rear. So that's what those plans that are before you now depict.
Bill, I got a
George,
question about your lighting. Is your new lighting plan gonna correct what's there now?
The new lighting, the plan that we have presented is the lighting plan for the site. It incorporates the lighting that we're going to install on the site, and I think it takes away some of the parking, some of the lights that are back there. But we did not get in too detailed with the
Because
lighting on the
I wanna
existing.
say after the last meeting, it probably was about 8:30 or so when we left, and I live a little south of there. I went by there, that place is pretty well lit. I mean, it's pretty well lit. I don't think it was that bad of a neighborhood.
Well, I think we agree wholeheartedly about the lighting situation, and there is a methodology to control it, and I don't know why it's being handled that way. Dave Menard also spoke to that point. When he's plowing snow in the middle of the night, he says it's bright enough when there's snow on the ground, and it just lights it right up. So the point is well taken. I articulated that point to the owners of Master Millwork, and they indicated to me that whatever they need to do to improve upon the lighting is what they're willing to do.
Mr. Chairman, can we roll that, make that part of one of our conditions if we
Yeah.
approve this?
And I don't know if you looked at the original approval, but I seem to remember more landscaping in front of the building, and I'm not sure that it ever got completed.
Can you go to the current landscaping plan? Can we
My
talk?
current landscape
Yeah.
plan?
Is it in the
sheet
the
6.
package?
C6 rather, I believe. Yeah, C6.
All right, see the feeding the deer, George? Down along the power lines? Planting, PA. ACs?
What about it?
Yeah, they're up there. They're putting spruce in there, white spruce. The deer will love it. They'll keep them trimmed up.
I have the existing conditions of approval for the original building, and there's not a whole heck of a lot in the written decision that speaks to landscaping other than it needed to be inspected prior to the issue. The site needed to be inspected for compliance prior to the issuance of the occupancy permit, so I can't really speak to that. We weren't involved at that time.
If I recall, they were gonna leave a lot of the natural vegetation there, and then during construction, I think it got eliminated, so. Have you any comment on that, Charlie, as far as the initial screening that was supposed to happen?
Unfortunately, I didn't bring a copy of the original plan with me, so I can't compare that to what's on this plan. I did go up there, and it seemed to me that around that drainage area that is in the front at the present time, it looks a little sparse.
Where's that at, Charlie?
Well, it would be to the left of the current driveway that goes in there. It'd be, yeah, and to the right of that just a wee bit, yeah. With this new landscaping plan, I think a lot of that will be absorbed in there, so it looks to be that will be covered up pretty good, because the driveway that's there is almost directly opposite Accowaxet Lane.
Right here.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah,
you look north of that point, you can see where they had planned to leave existing vegetation. And I think it got removed, because it's, like wide open to the front of that building, which was not the intent.
I'd have to go back and look, George. I don't recall.
To the right of the tree line would be where it's cleared.
I'm sorry, Ken?
To the right of the tree line where you were, would be where it's cleared.
Here.
Yeah, in that area.
So what I'm hoping for is a natural block from here as far up the front of this lot as possible. But I seem to remember there's natural stuff here right now. Do you remember, Bill?
Well, that tree line, that's what the tree line is representing on the
Right
plan,
here.
that there is trees in that area there. The open area is the open area
This is the open area.
where the drainage basin is.
Right.
Exactly. And then,
New trees here, here, and here.
well, and then I think if we go back up to just below that, to the right there, if we look at the grading plan, we're really going to build that berm up about 4 or 5 feet and then plant it. So with the extra material that we're making good use of the material that we have to dig out for the driveway connecting link, so we thought we'd push it over there, create a nice planting berm plateau, about 5 feet higher than the road, plant it, and that would be a screening area there, as well as that area just to the right of the driveway. We've mounded that just to the right of the driveway, that narrow, right there. That's also mounded in a narrow kind of formation, so it's about 30 inches high, and then that will be planted as well. So, your normal headlights on a car, if employees are parked there, are gonna be just a little bit around that height.
And if I heard you right, this represents a 6-foot-high stockade fence
Not from the end of the plantings,
from here?
from there down. We have a stockade fence shown on the plan.
Okay.
And
George?
the berm is.
I concur with Bill about the water test. So if they were to do a flow test and show that service line that comes in, that's about opposite Accowaxet now, goes into the current building. The original plan had the water main way up at the top of the lot line. It wasn't built there. It was built right opposite Accowaxet. It goes into the building right there. So if it turns out that the flow is sufficient in that line, so you can handle the existing plus the proposed building, it would eliminate the need for making a new trench cut across Charlotte Furnace. So in the event that it doesn't, then you could go back to Bill's suggestion about opening up that old trench and putting in another line in there. My only recommendation was, and unfortunately I didn't get this to you in time to give it to you today, was that the main that they're proposing from the new parking area to the new building be connected into the old line. because there's a separate fire department connection at the southwest corner of the new building. There's also a hydrant that's in between the two that are not connected to the old main. But if they were, then it would all be one piece, and so long as the flow worked, I think it would be fine.
And that's exactly what we would anticipate doing at the time, just the piping that we have shown in our plan, the fire service that comes in, present fire service that enters into the site, we would just tie into that and extend it to our distribution piping on the site.
What I was talking earlier was, this area here had not really filled in and screened the building as intended. And if there's something we can do to expedite that, either with additional plantings or, I think it would alleviate the lighting issue and take some of the edge off of what the neighbors have to see across the street.
George, there was also one other issue that was initially raised, which is no longer an issue, and that is that they shortened the building by 10 feet, which gave them the opportunity to put the fire department turnaround in that northeast corner in a little bit, and they're no longer encroaching on the 10-foot natural buffer. So that's been eliminated as a potential zoning variance that they'd need to get. So they solved that problem too.
Is that a proposed fence in the back also, Bill? In that back corner of the building, which Charlie was just speaking about? Is that a stockade
No,
fence?
there's no proposed fence in the back of the building. That's, the rear of that building butts right up against the chain link fence that's part of a solar field.
Is the turning radius changed, proposed turning radius?
I think it did. I think so. I'm pretty sure that...
To show the wheelbase, it should turn.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Chris has seen this plan.
Yeah.
I think he's okay with it.
He has. On the cover sheet, there's an aerial photograph that shows the solar field, that's to the east, power easement, that's to the south. So, anyway, we didn't see the need to place another fence adjacent to a fence.
So George, this is an overhead shot of, I was under the impression that this area right here was pretty dense, actually.
Well, it is looking down at it, but at ground level, you're looking right underneath all the...
It's all canopy for us.
I've driven in there 2 or 3 times now, and I was, to be honest with you, my main concern was the presence here in this area. And I'm pleased to see under the landscaping plan that that's being addressed. Having a business development overlay district, you know, abutting a neighborhood is tough to deal with, and I think that anything we can do here to isolate the two, the better. The new driveway, it being the only driveway, is great. It actually comes into the property almost before the neighborhood begins. So,
And yeah, the screening where the existing driveway is will help quite a bit.
it will help. It will help a lot. And the lighting plan that I've looked at, I actually learned something, Bill. I didn't even know you could do things like that. So and if we work with Master Millworks and make it a contingent that they operate under the bylaw operating hours and they use dimming functionality to the best of their ability, I think that there's been a lot of compromise here, and I'm pleased to see that we've been able to work together to accomplish something like that, so thank you, I appreciate it. But to Michael's point earlier, the lighting needs to be clearly spelled out about operating under bylaws and diminished capacity except for whatever is required for security as part of any permit that we grant.
Exterior lighting shall be adequate for safe egress for all modes of travel, but shall be dark sky compliant. Lighting controls will be installed to automatically reduce site lighting for non-work hours. Hours of operation limited to 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday, and 7 a.m. to noon on Saturday, and closed on Sunday. Is that, have you any idea what their hours of operation have been, or?
Was my understanding those were the hours of operation.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the ones that are in the current permit now, and I would expect that hours of operation equal to that was satisfactory.
Delivery vehicles will not be allowed to idle. No parking on Charlotte Furnace Road. Trash pickup will be scheduled between,
During work hours?
I think that's the wrong time frame. Schedule for pickup shall be limited to 10 p.m. and 5 a.m.
We tried.
What should that, what
You'd
should that
probably say
read?
normal hours of operation.
What are they, 7 to 5?
7 to 6.
7 to 6. 7 to 6.
Project shall comply with requirements for road opening, keeping Charlotte clear of all debris. Is there anything further that we discussed on these? What's listed in the draft?
I would say just to require flowable fill in the road if we do have to do it, if they have to cut. I mean, Dave would be on that, but if that's missed, that creates a serious problem.
I think the detail that's on the plan calls for that, so it's inherent in the design, but for added security in the permitting, we don't have an issue with it being articulated, written out in the decision.
Infrared patch, or
Pardon me?
did you specify an infrared patching, or?
Did not specify the infrared.
I don't know what the town requirement is. I don't know if Dave was silent on that or not.
I know that he's been satisfied with just putting the bitumastic joint on, having a good butt joint and coming right up against it. That's typically what we do for them when we're doing town work.
Yeah.
But whatever the preference is, or it's got to be by the municipal maintenance department standards, so whatever he's looking for that day is what we'll do.
22 on page 4. Place a customer directive sign.
Where at, Michael?
On page 4 in our approval sheet,
What number?
22. Thought there wasn't any customers in there. We don't want to have a condition in there that we're accepting customers, because it was going to be type of business that customers gonna go in and out.
You're talking about a sign right here?
Yeah, but the thing is, what I'm concerned about is the way it's written in its condition, customers allowed in there. You know, is there gonna be
How about-
retail out of there, or
Why don't we change it to visitor?
visitor would be a lot more appropriate than
Yeah, I mean, I
customer.
think that's what you get there. You get salesmen that are selling product to them that they're gonna manufacture from. You have, customers that are coming there to solicit their services for millwork construction projects, so you're gonna get that. You may have some architects coming in there, you may have a
Well,
couple.
I think for the sake of semantics, let's get rid of customer and call it visitor directive sign.
Perfect.
I think that makes everybody happy.
George, did you get an answer on some of the screening that would be under the canopy that you're concerned about?
Well, I know the landscape plan that will fill in the existing driveway is going to address some of it. Because that's a major gap when you're coming up the road, and you can look right in at it. But I didn't look at the,
In the winter, can you see right through? Is that really what's happening when leaves
Winter, you
aren't
can
on?
see right through in the summer.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Can we put evergreens, arborvitae's or something on the
Something
backside?
that I think has a lower canopy. What it is all old growth pine or tall growth pine. So, you know, you got nothing there, it's all canopy. From the air, it looks good, but from the ground, you know, unless you're 20 feet tall, you see right in there. They probably can stick some arborvitae's in between. The deer need something to eat too, so, since they're cutting all the trees.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what some undergrowth shrubby type of thing, I think would be good there.
Yeah.
Something that might not be deer tolerant species of some sort, I don't know, Ken, you might have a better.
Rhododendrons.
What's that?
Rhododendrons, they get nice and bushy.
They love them. But I mean, if that's the wish to supplement the existing wooded area, I guess we could do that as well.
and I don't remember if it might have been supposedly part of the first site plan and never got executed. I could be wrong, but
I think the original, George, it wasn't going to disturb that area. And the thing is, you got all mature trees, so, you know, there's no undergrowth there, there's no scrub oak.
I mean, if it is filling in, then then fine, just let it continue, but if it does need some help to get it moving, it would be.
Were you planning a one-year review as part of this permit?
I think that's appropriate, given the,
Could that be assessed at that time?
Yep.
So how does that work, George? This board would have the right to do an inspection after 1 year in regard to landscaping along the western border and the southern border? Is that what you're thinking?
Actually, the entire project.
I would say the whole thing. That way we don't miss anything.
There'll be a bond put up for the landscaping in total, so you can look at the whole site, all site improvements that are done.
Is that in the draft, Ken?
The performance bond, yes.
Yeah.
Berms that you're gonna build for the planting, that's all strictly soil, right? That's not any tree debris or anything like that?
No, that would be all like
This-
subsoil, topsoil, you know, something that you could plant in,
Stumps.
no stumps.
No stumps.
Is it existing from the site or brought in?
From the site. We have a net, well, I guess at the last meeting, I thought I said that we had about a 13,000 yard cut and about a 17,000 yard import for predominantly structural fill for the foundations of the building and underneath the parking lots and what have you.
Screened, the topsoil screened and then used, or just,
What do you mean?
the site contractor's gonna screen the topsoil before they
You know,
reuse it?
I don't
Usually
know if
2
he'll,
years.
I assume he
A
will.
one-year
He
review.
should
1 year review
probably
in 2
screen the
years.
roots out of it, whatever. I'm
Right.
not expecting a lot of rocks, but
So I don't-
I don't know what the,
Number 3.
I think screening is permissible on the site
You can
in
feel the
in
condition
a
of the
limited
fine.
capacity.
Yeah.
Number 2?
Number 3.
Oh, okay.
Let's say a one-year review from issuance of permit, or
When you review from the issuance of the permit,
I think from the issuance of the CO.
I was gonna say after the completion.
I'm just trying to, it just needs a point in time. Because they have 2 years to
Guaranteed for the material growth.
build, and then this is a public hearing, so I'll ask if anyone wishes to address the board regarding this. You can come forward.
Hi.
Good evening.
Kelly Sylvia again. Hello.
Would you wait till you get a little closer to the mic, just so Bob doesn't yell at us?
Sorry. Okay. Kelly Sylvia. I wanted to go back to the beginning when we first started this project. There were a lot of things that fell by the wayside. We didn't know what we were getting into when we got the construction going. It was long and loud and very trying. When we came to the meeting of it initially, everything we brought up was kind of fell to the wayside, poo-hooed. Master plan wasn't current, but it is. We don't have a new master plan in play, correct? Is that correct?
We do have a new master plan.
And it's in effect?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I think we need to make a lot of concessions not concessions, conditions specifically with the lighting. The lighting, is it going to be on, those big lights, all day, all night?
One of the conditions is to reduce or shut off during unnecessary hours,
In the
non-work
evenings?
hours.
Okay. The noise study, has that been done?
The noise, the conditions in this reflect what the noise bylaw is in the town, where they shouldn't be there at 4 AM emptying a dumpster and the other complaints that were mentioned. There are noise restrictions in the town of Wareham, and they will have to adhere to them.
Okay. And after hours and holidays and Sundays, they're still doing that. They still come after hours. They come in at night, on weekends. I mean, isn't that a violation?
I don't have the original approval in front of me, but if that's what was spelled out in it, yes, it's a violation.
I'm really concerned about the road. Are they going to be putting another cut in the road?
That was a discussion earlier. If at all possible, they're going to just fix the existing.
Because that
Cuts.
cut that they initially made in front of my house is still not right. It's still bang, bang, bang. And it's just, and then with the new homes that are going in, they're cutting the water too. So it's really deteriorating that road. And I just don't think that road I know that road can't handle the volume of cars and the trucks that go down that road every single day. I mean, they just repaved it not that long before this whole thing started. And they didn't want you to cut into it for 5 years. But then they were able to. Because it was going to get filled in and it was going to be like it was never done. Well, that's not true. I just, I went through the construction last time and I'm not looking forward to it again. It's going to be a lengthy, it's a giant building. And it's going to be more obtrusive to the neighborhood and the day-to-day. Every day, we're going to have more noise. I think they should do another traffic study too, not one from 1910. It says 125 cars a day is going to be added. We have new homes, we have this business, and now they're going to have even more. I just think that the road it's a country road, it's a small road. We finally got it paved and then they started ripping it up again. And now it's getting nasty again and we're increasing the traffic. Not only passenger cars, but tractor trailers and FedEx and UPS and multiple times a day. I mean, the way this started out, they had like 7 employees. It was going to be a benign, you said I wouldn't notice that they were there in 5 years. I mean, it's just way too large. The only thing that is positive is the driveway. Getting rid of that driveway right close to me and that's where it should have gone in the beginning. Now, I walked in when you guys were doing the plantings. In the front, is it going to totally screen the building?
I don't know, can you bring that?
The new work? Screening is right across here. This is all planted and screened. There's the driveway to the employee parking area. This is an elevated berm. It's 5 feet above the road. It's planted on top of that. Ground at grade is planted here and here. Existing trees to remain, planted around each side, planted up the side, planted on the east side of the driveway on a 30-inch high berm. Plantings around the planting islands, plantings along the loading dock bays, plantings along the foundation of the building, plantings along the driveway to the rear of the building.
Now, across from Echo Exit, where it says furnace,
Yep.
That's the driveway currently?
Yes.
Okay. That is going to be as high as the side will be?
It's gonna be 5 feet tall. It's gonna be 5 feet tall. It's elevation 76 here. 6 feet, it's elevation 82 at the top of it, so it slopes from elevation 75 rather, to 82
Okay,
at like a 3-to-1 pitch, and then that's planted with shade trees and low shrubs.
yeah, I agree that the shrubs are good because we do have large canopies, like you said, and you can see right in because there's not a lot of smaller trees.
But what you see where your driveway is now is going to be heavily planted with shrubs and trees, plus an earthen berm there to raise them up higher.
Right,
So
okay.
that should make quite a difference in what you have to look at.
I hope so. I mean, when we had the last time, they gave me a really pretty picture of what it was gonna look like, and it doesn't look anything like that at all. When is the road gonna be closed, that driveway? Is it gonna be done at the end, or,
We haven't even received an approval yet, so it's a little premature for us to try to project a construction schedule. I think once the approval is granted, if it is granted, then we'll prepare a construction schedule and be better suited to reply to that comment of yours.
and this is gonna be, they're not gonna do shift work, correct? It's just gonna be Monday through Friday, 7 to 7, that's it?
That's what's being presented to us, yes.
7 to 6,
7 to 6?
Saturday,
and then Saturday.
Saturday,
So
the half
12.
day.
7 to
Yep.
noon.
7 to 12. That's when the trash is required to be picked up as well.
Okay,
the borough.
all right, I think that's pretty much what I had. I just hope that, if you approve it, that everything goes smoothly, because I have to live there every single day. I mean, I asked last time, and for the newcomers, if you want to switch keys with me and live with my house, I'll switch houses with you if you choose to do that. I just don't want to go through another construction again. It's going to be a lengthy, how long do you perceive this construction to take?
It really would depend when it starts, but it looks to me to be, I don't know, maybe 18 months total.
And the trees that they're going to be taking down between the power lines and their driveway, their new proposed driveway, how much of a buffer is in between that?
There's a 10-foot natural existing buffer, and then there's a, I believe it's 20-foot landscape buffer. I put my glasses on. Yeah, it's 20-foot landscape buffer and there's 30-foot buffer between the edge of between the back side of the berm and the property line. So there's a 30-foot vegetated landscape buffer.
And then the sign, are they going to be moving the sign as well?
We don't show the sign being relocated on this project.
Don't you think that it might want to move it to where they're going to be going in so that they don't go past that drive?
I think we're able to put directional signs and directional signage on the site on an as-needed basis. So if we wanted to place a small truck delivery entrance right there, I think that could be done. But right now, there's not a facility sign proposed to be shown other than the sign that exists there today.
All right,
Where is the existing sign?
the existing sign is at, on the driveway, on the far left,
The existing?
yes.
So it's past,
It'll be past where they're gonna go in.
It's not necessarily uncommon. I mean, you see that, like if you go to the New Bedford Business Park, for example, there's many facility signs that are located essentially on the center line of the property, and then your driveway access and your service access
Yeah,
is there in another location.
I just think it would probably be better for you for them to have it close to where they need to go in. And I think that would help them out more, but all right, well,
You know, as you drive around, you'll see areas where industrial uses brush up against residential, and there's no reason why they can't do that without ruining your quality of life or their operation. You should be able to work together. If that's not happening, then you need to let us know.
yeah, it's just been difficult. It's, my house still shakes. I hear every time they hit the bump where they come down the road, where they cut the road. It's, you know, and they've tried to fix it a couple of times, and it's just still not correct. But,
Well, once they determine whether they have to open the road again, then I'm sure they can make a proper repair.
I hope so.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jonathan Rogers. I'm at 49 Charlotte Furnace Road, so just south of the power lines. Like Kelly, I just had some concerns and just a couple questions along with the new proposed plan that Bill submitted to you. I know you said there's going to be a berm along the landscaping on the Charlotte Furnace side. Is there going to be a continuous berm on the south side as well, or just trees? And then
There
the
is a
fence.
berm intended for partway down, is that accurate? On the south, on the power line side?
There's no berm proposed here? No,
Oh, I thought you said there was.
right here. In here.
So there's nothing on the south side, just the trees 240 foot back and then a 6-foot fence. So that's a pretty
Correct.
straight shot to seeing the majority of that building. I don't know if that's something we could do on the south side as well in order to help, you know, noise and also sight lines coming down Charlotte Furnace. Because it's not just, you see it all the way through the power lines. It's an empty cavernous space, and pretty much anybody from Pekingese down can see that as well and hear that. And then I did notice on the proposed landscaping too, there's a gap there of tree line. Is there a particular reason for that?
Where?
On the bottom, on the south side again.
Right here?
there's- Correct, yes. I was just curious as to why there would be a gap there and then added trees on the other
There's a
side.
drainage structure located there and underground piping.
Okay, so
So-
there's a reason, okay. Okay. So yeah, so with, like I was saying, with the berm, is a 6-foot fence adequate enough to block that south side as well? I mean, I know it's 200 foot back, but I don't know if we would consider that adequate enough, from my perspective. I know Kelly brought up the traffic study previously, and I know there was no analysis done, but we did mention last meeting that that was 20 years old. It was prior to the BDOD overlay district. So, I mean, since then, Wareham has changed drastically with Wareham Crossing coming in, these new businesses on Charlotte Furnace, and we're adding more and more and more. So just for the structure of the road and everything, how do we know what's there now? And just going to keep adding and adding and adding and adding. So I think that's something, you know, as a resident, I would be interested to see in that area. Just because it is kind of almost a highway on that street. I know it's, I think, a 35-mile-per-hour road, but there's people going 60 miles an hour going down there, and then you have tractor trailers and everything. So I know you can't control speeding, but the amount of traffic on that road is something I would very be interested in seeing as well. I don't know if I had the most current draft that you guys are looking at for the conditions. I know Mr. Baptiste said something about point 22. Mine only goes to 18. But I was just hoping, I know we talked about the lighting and it says non-working hours. I was just hoping we could specify that in writing to be consistent with point 14, just so we have it consistent, or at least put a measurable time, if it's 8 o'clock or something along those lines, instead of non-working hours.
Already addressed.
Are we talking about the manufacturing portion of the site, or what about the administrative office? If someone were needing to come into the administrative office to conduct business during other than those hours, I know that I would find myself going back to my office tonight after this meeting, and I think it may not be appropriate to, well, I mean, it may be appropriate, but I mean, you might want to, I don't know if you want to consider the manufacturing hours versus the administrative hours.
I was thinking of that as we were discussing it, and I don't think it would be unusual for somebody administratively to come in on a Sunday or a Saturday, and I don't think, as long as it's not production and noise producing
Well, just for,
activities.
yeah, I mean, just for clarity's sake, because, there's a lot of discussion going on about hours of operation, and, I think for the benefit of the client, in this instance, we wouldn't want to be, accused of working outside the hours of operation for an administrative person to be in there doing billing or computer CAD work or whatever, when it really doesn't have anything to do with the real meat, which is the manufacturing on the site. So if you want to, I mean, I don't know if you want to consider that, but, I think that from the master millwork side of things, it might be something that, that I would be asking for consideration on behalf of my client.
I think the message that I keep hearing from the folks is just the abuse of lighting. It seems like that message seems to keep coming out. So as long as we address overlighting the property with the new lighting that's being proposed as part of the upgrades, I would ask that whatever you're using to control the lighting on the new construction be carried over to what's existing, so that they're not looking at bright lights at 10 o'clock at night.
We agree.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, that's really, unless I'm mishearing, that's really what I keep hearing throughout all of this is noise and light. That seems to be the big complaint.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I work late at night as well. I get that. I go into the office, but I mean, that's more of a one-off, or, is lighting at 10 o'clock at night need to be there for the one-off chance that I go to my office, to do some work or something along those lines? Or, there's going to be lighting for egress, so there's going to be some lighting on the property. I think Charlie mentioned that at the last meeting, that, that is code. You need that. So it's not going to be pitch black there in that sense. So, and then it was just, I had a similar thing with trash pickup. I think you had kind of gave that specification in during working hours as well. I just, looking at this, it can be a little bit subjective in the way it's written, I think. Whereas if we put time restrictions on it, it's a little bit more policeable. And that leads me to my next point. Like, we talked about who would police this. So is it the building inspector, just to confirm? Was that who we bring our issues up to if this is not?
Yeah, I had the same question. Who is the enforcement
Specifically, it would be the zoning
authority?
enforcement officer, correct?
That's correct.
Who?
Zoning enforcement officer,
And who's that?
the building commissioner. At this time, it could be somebody separate.
I think one of the things I think we should do is we should inform that zoning enforcement officer of the complaints that we've heard as this part of this process, because we don't need to wait until this building is done to go enforce it. We need to go, I think we need to ask him to look at it today,
Yeah, they could start modifying behavior
immediately.
right now. It doesn't have to wait until the shovel goes on the ground.
So I don't know how
Yeah,
to,
you asked for an enforcement, and I'll check in with the building commissioner and start enforcement proceedings as needed.
as needed, yes. So can
People
we
have to-
ask,
Yeah, take a vote from the board, just as we did with the,
It'll show good faith.
Yeah.
let's make sure we do that before we close this.
Right.
All
Yes,
right?
yeah, and if I could also be there for that meeting, is that something I could be in attendance for?
I don't know that it
how
would
that
necessarily
works.
be a meeting, but
Okay.
won't it just be a request sent to him?
yeah, just be a request and him taking enforcement.
If I could just
action.
get some copy of that correspondence, is that possible?
Yes, it is. If you be the source of the complaint, then
Okay.
you'll get the response as
Okay.
well.
All right, thank you. And I know there was some mention of the special permit from the original plan. That's gonna carry forward. So, you know, the hours of operation specified there is gonna carry forward. It's not gonna change or anything along those lines. This is not another special permit that's gonna override that by this new plan.
Now, what it says is that this decision will not impose lesser restrictions than those included in the previous site plan review approval. Those previous conditions shall remain in effect. Where a conflict may arise from conditions of this latest approval and those previous conditions, the more restrictive conditions shall apply.
Okay, thank you. One other point here. If I can find it. Oh, it was Kelly's noise study that was mentioned. Kelly mentioned a noise study.
Noise study?
Yes, and this was mentioned at the last meeting, and I know the board kind of said it was excessive, but with, you know, the growth of the area, just to get a baseline now, I know there's background ambient noise, but that's what is there on Charlotte Furnace Road. So how can you police something that it's increased if you don't know where a baseline is based off of this project? Is just my point with that. I mean, yes, there is going to be traffic noise on the road outside of Master Mill Works in their operation. I understand that, but that's the neighborhood noise level as it is now. And then if it does increase, and then we do a study, that's our baseline, and we're already, there's nothing we can do at that point, as was mentioned at the last meeting as well.
Having been through those before, I don't know how you can set a reasonable baseline. You know, you can come in at 3 o'clock in the morning and do it and make it impossible for anybody to meet the standard. Or you can come in and measure when there's a truck going by and make that your baseline. So there's a lot of variables, so I think setting a baseline would
I completely understand that, but that's why you take a very large sample size over a couple hours during the day, maybe a couple days during the week, or something along those lines, and then using, for lack of a better term, mathematics, to then take the standard of that sample, and like we could do it not 3 a.m. like you said, but say between the hours of operation, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday to Friday, just to get a baseline off of that and just give us a general idea would be my hope, seeing that in the neighborhood. And then the last point was the 1-year review that is going to be written in, I know this is draft form, but that is included in this before any vote
There'll be a
or
1-year
anything.
review and a 2-year review.
Okay,
From the time of project completion.
Correct. There'll be an inspection at project completion and an inspection 1 year and 2 years later.
okay,
And that will be in here.
okay, that's what I was just making sure, because I know in writing is what really matters. Yeah, so then I would just close, for me, just maybe, hopefully, that a berm on the south side could be added similar to Charlotte Furnace Road to help with that, give us about 10 foot of berm, not berm, but 5 foot of berm and a 6 foot fence where there's no tree line, I think would be extremely helpful to the shielding of this, including light, noise, and everything on that side, so.
Well, just to be clear, the first 10 feet from the property line is not going to be disturbed, correct?
Right.
Mhm.
And then you're going to have 20 feet beyond that of
Mhm.
buffer with plantings partway up.
But I think then we're gonna run into the same issue on Charlotte Furnace side, as you're saying, there's not much low hanging anything over there. And we're clearing out all but 10 feet.
Well, there's a lot of scrub there, but it drops the leaves in the wintertime. See what you propose there.
Some of these spruces are supposed to be 7 to 8 feet in height.
Yeah, I did notice that, but then after 240 feet, it drops off, and it's just a 6-foot fence. And then there's a few other trees in there, but, I mean, I understand there's drainage that's needed, I get that. But, I mean, I'm just saying, 6 foot, you're gonna clearly see that. And if you drive down Charlotte Furnace, you can see that from the corner of Pekingese all the way through, and you're gonna see the whole building, basically, on that side. And I know there's gonna be a 10-foot tree buffer, but 10 foot isn't a whole lot, and then when you start disturbing those long-lived trees, a good windstorm, a lot of them will probably come down just from disturbing the area. So at the end of the day, do we know 10 foot is going to stay 10 foot? But we can't speculate on that at this point. So, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments being so well prepared, and it's nice to hear.
Thank you.
Anything further? So,
George, would you mind quickly just reviewing the edits that we've made to that document?
Let me go through them then.
Thank you.
I'm suggesting in number 2 is, the conditions have changed. That's that the project shall be substantially constructed in conformance with the approved plan set, and a project schedule shall be submitted prior to start of construction. A performance bond shall be issued, and there will be under number 11, there is an inspection that's made at the time of request for issuance of a certificate of occupancy, and there will be a 1-year review from the certificate of occupancy and a 2-year review from the certificate of occupancy for continued conformance of the site improvements. Under number 17, the trash pickups shall be scheduled, limited to normal hours of operation. And number 22.
Which were identified under number 14, just for the record.
Correct. 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to noon on Saturday, and closed on Sunday. And then on 22, that there'll be a visitor direction sign near the driveway to the front of the existing building. And in number 25, that flowable fill shall be used in all road excavation for restoration of the pavement.
Didn't we have something about in conjunction and approval, with approval by the municipal maintenance department, or something to that effect?
What we have is that
I thought that's what David emailed you.
that's correct. I believe there was something about compliance with number 4. The project shall comply with all requirements necessary for obtaining road opening permits for driveways and utilities. Only one driveway opening shall be permitted on Charlotte Furnace Road.
Does that imply approval by municipal maintenance?
Yes, it is, because they are the ones that provide road opening permits.
Okay. You agreeing with you on board with the changes as he's read them?
Yes.
George, could I put in a couple of others?
sure.
Back on August 20, I wrote a letter to the planning board. This was after we had seen some revised plans as of 8/20. Does your special permit draft at this point reflect the plans of September 2nd?
Yes, they do.
Rather than just saying the approved plans, because we've got 3 different dates here.
Yeah, what the reference is September 2nd, the
Okay.
plans that are submitted now.
All right. At the time that the other plans were submitted, the architectural plans had not been changed to reflect the cutting off of that 10-foot piece of it at the top end. So that was one of my recommendations on that August 20 letter, that the architectural plans be revised to show the removal of the northern 10-foot section. That, and the operation and maintenance plan for stormwater construction implementation be incorporated by reference.
That's number 20 in the
Okay.
draft.
I don't have your draft, Ken, so just bear with me just a second. And then the other one that I was looking for was a pre-construction meeting prior to the commencement of construction for the purpose of understanding site construction inspection requirements and procedures. And the only other one that I'd suggest, at least for discussion, would be, you've talked about if they need a second water main to be installed, it would be put in that existing trench. But even if it's not, if the flow test shows that you don't need that pipe, and there's still a problem with the trench because of the pounding of trucks, I would request that you put a provision in there that says that that trench will be inspected and brought up to specification so that that surface is smooth.
Inspections are listed under condition number 8.
Okay. It does help to spell that out sometimes because it may not be me, it could be somebody else that goes there, but if they don't have a document to refer to that identifies it as a concern, then it really minimizes the amount of leverage that the inspector has to make sure that that work gets done. So a little less objective when that happens, so if you can write it in somehow, that would be helpful.
Which water department does this jurisdiction is this under?
Wareham.
So where, yeah, I think they collect the 1,000 bond for road inspection. But maybe we could request more in this situation? If the water main's gonna require more work than the average residential home? I know they
I think
collect
the
a,
bond you're referring to is to cover the materials. This patch is not being done by the water department, so I would assume the contractor would have to supply a bond to the town.
yeah. And then there's a 1-year inspection by them, I think, on the patch. And it's supposed to be upgraded, or they can use the bond or the deposit. I don't know if 1,000 would be appropriate here, or if we
Well,
could
that's
ask for
kind
more.
of covered by, where is it?
Number 3 is a performance bond for the driveway closure, grading, and all landscaping agreed to.
But it also says,
And in number 4 is where it shall comply with all requirements necessary for obtaining road opening permits.
applicant shall comply with all bylaws of the town of Wareham and approvals and conditions of all town boards and commissions and the Wareham Fire District. So they have to comply with any standard that's given to them.
But is there a depression in the road currently that is part of the complaint? On the current?
There must be something causing,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a depression or a bump, I don't
Yeah.
remember. Was that all the way across the road, or was it just?
Yeah, I mean, I was up there maybe 3 weeks ago, and to be honest with you, didn't even notice it, but wasn't looking for it either, so
Mhm.
I assume it has something to do with settlement.
Yeah, the trench went right across the road, George, because they made a tap on the water main on the west side of Charlotte Furnace, and then trench cut right across it and then backfilled it. I remember the water department personnel were there at the time, and I'm assuming that they backflowed it with flowable fill, but if you don't compact any material, I don't care what it is, if you don't do it right, it'll settle. And if you've got truck traffic that's going over it, just that impact is enough to compress it even more. So sometimes you need to backfill it again and re-level it. So whatever needs to be done to smooth it out.
Say it may be too high, we don't know if it's settled. or-
We don't know. That's certainly something could be looked into, but at the time prior to the final inspection, even during the course of construction, you can certainly take a look at it. And one of the things that it'll be dependent upon will be whether or not the flow test shows you're gonna need another main. If it does, then you're back at cutting open the trench, doing your backfill, compacting it again, making sure that the compaction is adequate the way it's supposed to be, and then putting your surface treatment back on it. So that depends on what they find out for the flow of the main. If they don't need it, you can still write it in, or if it's a part of, you feel you're covered enough with the fact that you have to comply with both the water department and highway requirements for cutting the road, then you can always take a look at it at any time during the construction phase. And if it doesn't comply with it at the time of the CO, then it's got to be fixed.
I just penciled in, visiting the site for office work and non-traffic and noise-generating activity will be allowed. That kind of covers the... I don't think most of the time, nobody will even notice it, but... Anything further? Did you read them all through, Ken? The changes?
Except for the one you just did about traffic and noise generated by normal office activities.
Meant to write outside of normal operations.
Charlie, did you cover all your items?
Yes, thank you.
Number 2 says, project shall be constructed in conformance with the approved plan referenced above, and it's, like you said, there's no date there, so somewhere do we want to put,
Latest revision date, September 2nd.
Could I,
filed 8/10, revised through 9/2?
I think they were filed, the original plan date was July, I believe.
Yep. July 8 strikes me, Bill.
July 8th and revised through September 2nd.
Okay. So if there's no other comments or concerns, we would look for a motion.
Is it appropriate that we approve the draft site plan review approval decision as amended tonight?
Yeah,
So I move that we approve the site plan review approval decision as amended tonight.
One of the things I want to point out is that I put a finding in here that no signs are approved with this decision. Is that correct?
say that again?
No signs are approved with this decision.
That would have to go through a separate process.
Other than his normal directional signs on site, yeah. Right?
Yeah, the directional sign for visitors is the only sign that's allowed.
Mhm.
I think
And the
that's
stop
appropriate.
sign.
I don't know if you'd want to try to attempt sign placement and size this early in the project. I would think you'd want it to kind of take form first.
George, just one question before you vote. How are you going to address the issue of the water main?
I don't. I think we gave them all the parameters they have to hit, so.
I know, but if all you've done is reference the plan of record,
Yeah.
it shows a second water main.
I missed the other conditions, did we write that in?
I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
A fire flow test will be conducted in order to determine the capacity of existing service main to provide fire protection for the project as a whole. If it is determined there is adequate fire flow using existing main, then the new cut across Charlotte Furnace Road would not be required.
I think we want, if it is required, it would be done in proximity of the existings,
Essentially the same trench.
yeah. Oh,
Couldn't that be handled as a minor plan change? You know, don't you just put the standard condition in there that, you know, any plan changes that are proposed would need to be brought to the board's attention, and then you'd make a determination as to whether or not it was a substantial change or not, and then vote on it at that time? Would that be an optional way of dealing with it, other than writing it in? Or an addition? Maybe you do both.
I was just thinking we were just trying to eliminate a step.
That's always good, too.
And the issue with it, I see, Bill, is that the plan shows the water main running up as a brand-new cut up the
Right.
new entrance. So with the condition that Ken's written in, it says you're not gonna do it unless you need to, and if you do it, you're gonna put it in the trench and not where it shows on the plan. So long as that's written in, I think you're covered. And I don't think you need to, it's covered there in what they're putting together.
Good point. As I say, it would seem like the one pipe would be enough to do both buildings, but. Did you get that?
The one pipe can do both buildings.
There was a motion to approve the
I
plan.
think you should ask if there's any more discussion.
You have something to say?
No, I mean, it's just, we have a habit of making a motion to take action and then we still discuss.
Well,
So let's make
I
sure.
was just rehashing it. Your motion was to approve the site plan with the listed conditions, correct?
It was.
And was there a second?
There hasn't been yet. Are we done with discussion?
Well, you usually do discussion after you have a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
Can we
Okay,
go over this again,
discussion.
George?
You get to
George,
vote
can we
on
go over
this,
this
by the way.
again?
It's a site
I'm
plan.
getting confused here.
What's that?
All set.
It's off of Shell Road.
Okay.
You were confused, right? Any discussion? Anything? You're deep in thought, Richard.
No, I have nothing.
With that, I would ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. Next, I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Second. I'm gonna keep.
Any discussion?
I don't know why do you have a call for discussion after the motion has been made to move?
I know, after we've been discussing it for half an
Makes no
hour.
sense to me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
All right, well, thank you all for going through the process again.
Appreciate your
No, it was,
efforts to be a
it was
neighbor.
good, I mean, it was good,
So,
series of hearings.
I'd like to make a comment, though, and I made it before, kind of, but to all the folks that live in that neighborhood, I feel good that you brought your concerns and your issues to this board, and that we heard them, that the developer heard them, the engineering firm heard them, and as I said, I'm pretty pleased with the cooperation that was, the cooperation that we got from everybody involved to get to where we are today. I think it's a very good compromise. We talked a lot at one point about the master plan and preserving neighborhoods, and that's very true. But the master plan also calls for a focus on our industrial and commercial bases as well. And my point is that the master plan is a 100-page document of contradictions at times. And it's part of the local government in our town to balance out those priorities and those strategies and that we want to accomplish. And it's often very, very hard to do. And I think tonight was a good example of how it can be done right. So thank you.
With that, I'd also suggest that you ask for enforcement of any of the complaints that you've received tonight.
How do we do that? Do we make a motion to direct the zoning enforcement officer to investigate the complaints?
Correct.
So moved?
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I don't think it's, I don't think anyone believes that the BDOD met its expectations, especially in this circumstance. It's a far cry from what it was initially marketed as, with some successes and some failures. And, you know, maybe we need to revisit that, although I think that'd be locking the door after the horse got out.
All right, well, thanks a lot. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Bill. Well, I probably should have said this earlier. If you were here for the Borrego site plans, they've asked for continuance to next meeting, Ken?
Next meeting.
So the next item on the agenda is the master plan. As you recall, we had that on Springtown meeting to confirm the establishment of a new master plan, and all that got waylaid. So we're still within the time frame to put it on the warrant?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's up on the screen. I've emailed it out to everyone. This is exactly what we submitted for Springtown meeting. It's a non-binding resolution. It asks the town meeting to endorse the 2020 Wareham Master Plan. I want to be very clear, the master plan is final and is approved. The planning board has final say on that. This is something, after a lot of discussion, that with a lot of people in town, that it made a lot of sense to take it to town meeting and keep them involved and keep the town meeting an integral part of this process. So this is just an article to see if they will vote to accept the following resolution to endorse the master plan, and you can read it there for what it's worth. It'll be submitted tomorrow to the Board of Selectmen for inclusion in the warrant, and it will be, we'll present this at the town meeting, and hopefully a vote will be held and it will be passed. we've already we've gone through this exact process as a board and approved this in the spring, just need to redo it again. So we'll have discussion after that. I would ask for a motion to have me submit this to the Board of Selectmen for inclusion in the 2020 Fall Town Meeting warrant.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
We've had enough discussion. We've discussed this to death.
They vote on this tomorrow? Do they have a meeting tomorrow night, the selectmen?
They do.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Also, do we not also have to vote on the existing ones that we've held the public hearing on this evening?
Yes, you do.
We only have to do that prior to town meeting though, don't we?
Right.
I mean, we don't, like in the cafeteria the night before would work if we wanted to. Not that I want to, but just from a process point of view, I'm wondering.
Well, you want your report to be ready by the time of town meeting.
Sure.
So when George gets up there and makes his statement,
I think I'm sick that night. We better have our act together. That moderator's a real slave driver.
Better be careful, she's taking notes.
She's sticking pins in
So
the
we
doll bag.
should put that on the agenda for probably our next upcoming meeting, you think, George?
yeah, you should make a recommendation to the selectmen on the articles.
Right. So for next meeting, can we all be prepared to vote on yea or nay against the 5 articles that we had?
Well, the warrant's going to close on the 22nd, as far as I know now. Is that correct?
But we don't have to have our vote to them by the time the warrant closes, do we?
If you want to make a recommendation to the selectmen, you should be doing that now.
I thought it was our recommendation to town meeting.
Yes, that's what's required by law, that you make a recommendation to report to town meeting.
But we also have the opportunity to recommend to the selectmen.
Correct.
Like they're gonna pay attention to us, right?
Do we actually have to appear before them, or do we just submit? I don't think we've gone in front of them to
Just
discuss
submit
it.
it, just submit it.
I don't remember ever going in front of them to discuss it. Sometimes the FinCom asks for that.
Yes, the FinCom does ask for that. One of the reasons why they were having joint hearings with us is so they wouldn't have to have a separate meeting for that purpose.
We had a discussion earlier. Did you reduce, on the Wareham Village, did you reduce the overlay district or change its title or something?
No,
So, I mean, you didn't expand it, because I saw when you did the slideshow last week, something was scratched out, like the overlay district was redlined.
No. What that meant, what that meant was that we had 4 different ways to implement the zoning changes, and one of them was an overlay district, and we eliminated that as an option. And we went with the sub-district with site plan review. That's what I was trying to say there.
Okay. Because as I mentioned to you, I thought the mixed use should apply to all of Wareham Village. And when I saw that etched out, I thought you meant the whole shooting match is going to apply to all of Wareham Village, which I think that could get, if it were to be built out that way, it would be oppressive. It would turn Main Street into a big housing project, which,
it wouldn't work. You don't have the market necessary to make that happen anyway.
and the resultant problems when you have that much of that kind of density.
Yeah, having a center and an activity area that is reasonable and is walkable is more important than trying to get development anywhere and anywhere.
So we have till, I'm sorry. we only have 8 days to come to have a vote on those articles, if we want to get them in front of the selectmen before they make their decisions on submitting or not.
Correct.
Which would mean we would either need to vote tonight or have another meeting,
Correct.
right? I'm prepared to vote tonight. Is that something that you can legally add to our agenda for tonight?
I think it come under,
48-hour business?
how's it worded?
New business. That's not really right, is it? You-
Says reasonably expect. Well, I'm not reasonable.
I think we can.
So I think the timeline kind of jumped in at us, so. I would just put it out there, is there anything that jumps out at you with that public hearing that sent up a red flag to anybody, or a reason for?
Maximum height, that seemed to be a concern of a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
What's that, Michael?
The maximum, the 65-foot maximum height,
65 foot?
that seemed to be a big concern for quite a few folks, and not just the folks that live in downtown.
What is it now? Is it 45 now? Or
40, isn't it?
40.
It's 40.
40? So the white building across from Bello and Bello,
It's
That-
above the,
that's more than 40.
yes.
45 about, what do you know?
I don't know for sure,
Yeah.
certain, I can look it up, because when the antenna was put on top of it, it
Oh,
extended the height.
right, but I mean, just the building itself, around, less than 50 though, right?
Yeah.
About 50. I mean, we're gonna be stuck with the 60 to 65 because when we build in the flood zone, so I don't see how we can get 3 stories without the 60 anyway. At least 55, because you need 8 feet of clearance to park underneath. 7.6 anyway.
You may need 2 levels of parking underneath to make the parking requirements. And in which case, you got 15 feet, 12 to 15 feet for that first commercial space level. So
Not going down any.
you're already halfway there.
I will say this, we discussed this at length in all 4 Zoom meetings that I held with public and government leaders, and we discussed it at length at the WRA meeting. And not to put you on the spot, Ken, but at the WRA meetings, we kind of deferred to Ken's expertise and the feedback that he's always gotten and the work that he's done in other areas in terms of what we need to do to make the zoning economically feasible for private money to come in and hopefully get private money to come in and try to do some development work. So I deferred to his expertise on that, is what I did. I mean, because at one point we were at, I think, 60 feet, weren't we?
Correct.
And we went up to 65. And I know that was based on, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that was based on some experience that I didn't have, and I deferred to that.
I mean, should we know exactly how many stories we're getting at 65?
We're told based that there can be 10 to 12 to 15 feet per, and usually the first floor is at least 15. So if you look at 15 and 12 and 12 and 12, that's 36, 46, 61. Yeah.
And if they want to have peaks to make it look good or, you know, anything, then you have a little play.
That's right, and the height is calculated at the highest structural member of the roof.
Not including an antenna or anything, but
No,
That would
just the
be-
highest structural member.
the top of the gable or the
Yeah.
highest, yeah.
It'd be the top of the gable.
I thought it was the average height, like on a slope roof, it was halfway up.
No, in the definition, it's the average of the grade around the building to the highest structural member.
Okay.
Before construction, the grade before construction, right? Or after? Because if you put fill into a site.
Before construction.
Before, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to have a redevelopment of the downtown as a downtown area, you're going to have to allow the height that will get the number of floors for rentable space and units in the development. And I think what we can do is provide images of buildings that are in that range of 60 to 65 feet, so you get an idea of what the potential building form might look like.
And there's, how do we control, if you put up a new building, so from sidewalk face back out over using the air rights to create the parking, and then up, how many potential apartments could you have on a floor? Or condos, or whatever it is? 4?
1,000 square feet per. Isn't that right? Ken?
Well, that's the calculation of the number of units. The area of the units themselves, it could be 1,500 square feet.
Could be minimum of 1,000 though.
Could be a minimum of 1,000. Well, there's the density calculation, which is based on the area of the lot and the number of units that are created. So that's 1,000 square feet of lot area per unit that's allowed on that parcel. The unit itself could be 1,500 square feet or something of that order for a market rate unit, 1,200 to 1,500 square feet. So more than likely it would be a double-loaded corridor on the floor plan. It would be, say, I think it's,
I could see it being 2 units per floor, if you were building 1,500 square foot.
no, it'd be more like 6 to 8 to possibly 10, depending on the depth.
And how do we protect ourselves, at the risk of sounding like a prude, how do we protect ourselves from subsidized housing? Because if we're trying to revitalize downtown, you're looking to attract young professionals with money in their pocket who want to live downtown.
Well, the thing is that the market rate units are renting at Rosebrook. And that's the opportunity that's available to have a better return on investment.
Well, that's great for the developer. I'm talking about the town people.
And you're saying you don't want subsidized units in there, that you want market rate units.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you do that by not requiring subsidized units.
I mean, I wouldn't wanna either rent or buy a condo or an apartment, whatever, and be paying $2,500 or $3,000 a month for a water view unit, and then have a subsidized unit across the hall from me. That would
I
irritate
don't
the
think you
living
can
crap out of me.
specifically eliminate that. I mean,
I know,
there's
but
all
how do you
types of
protect it?
subsidized.
How do you protect yourself against it?
I don't
If we're,
think you,
if we're gonna go through the pains of allowing 65-foot tall buildings on Main Street to attract developers, that's all well and good. I get the idea of bringing Main Street back, but not at the risk of the whole project being weighted toward the developer and not have our best interest protected as well.
Michael, I hear you, and I'm on board with you, and it's my understanding, please correct me if you're wrong, Ken, that that's all part of the developer's proposal. And if we're at 10% by that point, we're gonna have a lot more leverage. Pardon me?
We're not gonna be.
Oh, we might be. We very well might be.
You never get there.
I don't don't think so either. I
Because
think
for
the only
every
way to
unit,
get there is when-
for every unit you build,
the trailers.
you gotta add more. So it doesn't matter how many times you do it, you never get to the 10%.
What concerns me about,
Well, wait, but let me, I need to finish my thought. I do believe that we have a good opportunity to get to 10%. And in our WRA meetings on this, we discussed options and programs that we could have gone after with this, for state or federal money, that had requirements about affordable housing, and we chose not to do that. We chose to keep it open, in my belief that market-based rental units provide a developer the most incentive to come in and do something. I do care about the developer making a buck, because that's the only way we're going to get the downtown to be any different than it is today. We don't have any money ourselves to do anything. It's going to be done with private money. And private money's only going to, they're not going to give it away.
No, no one says that they have to give it away, but we still have to protect ourselves to some extent. You can't just leave the front door of your house open, walk away, and trust that the developer is gonna take care of it.
But I don't think it's legal to say we're going to create a WV1R sub-district within WV1, and, oh, by the way, affordable housing's not allowed here.
No, we can't do that.
Well, I know you can't. I'm putting it out there. How do we protect ourselves the best way we can?
We get to 10%.
well,
Well, two ways.
Be with Charlie. I don't think we're ever gonna get there.
I'm thinking beyond that. I'm thinking that by giving them 65 feet as of right, we open the door to making Main Street one big housing project, especially if commuter rail comes in. If you look at the apartment houses and things that are built in Middleborough as a result of commuter rail, very large-scale project, and I don't want to turn
Yes,
Main
yeah.
Street into a project.
It's up to this board to look at a proposal. We have no proposals right now, none. We have none to compare against, or to say this is what's going to happen. We have none. That's why downtown Wareham is deteriorating.
Can we stipulate that any development that goes in that's residential is condominiums for sale, as opposed to rental apartments?
That would be the wrong thing to do, because you're limiting the market opportunities that a developer has. What you're trying to do is provide the opportunity for the best return that's available, and that's on the market rate units that could be either rental or for sale.
Well, what's the market rate units at Rosebrook compared to the regular? I mean, what's the range
The range of,
of rents?
I think they're very similar to what subsidized pays.
Right.
The subsidized, for the longest time, your subsidized rents were higher than your market rent.
Mhm.
And I think Rosebrook has got the market rate ones up where the subsidized ones are. Maybe a little more in some cases.
I think, are you asking what the rental rates are up at Rosebrook?
Well, I know they're around $2,000, $2,200.
Yeah, I think they start at 18, to the smallest, I think.
What's the square footage there for those around?
They're small.
About
They're
I don't know.
nothing. It's not special.
1,200, 1,000 square feet, 1,200 square
I
feet?
thought they were expensive,
I thought they were way overpriced. I would never pay $2,000 a
and
month.
they're full.
Do we know what the balance is as far as,
So, interesting point you
Is there
made though
anything
about
subsidized
condos
there?
versus rentals.
yeah?
More and more people are renting. People that are downsizing are selling and renting. People that are getting into the market for the work market and the housing market for the first time are renting, because they want the flexibility. That's what our redevelopment, our economic strategy that we did in 19 told us. I was surprised to see that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know more people are renting. I just know, I finally extricated myself from real estate this past year. But for 25 years, I owned at one point 10 pieces of property. So I had a front row view of how the system was manipulated, especially when it comes to subsidized housing. And I just wouldn't want to see that happen to us by opening up this door.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons that I personally depend on the ZBA and this planning board, but I also depend on, in site plan review. I don't want 4 stories of apartments down there. I want restaurants, and I want commercial lawyers' offices, and I want apartments up above, and I want people, I use that phrase, live, work, and play right there.
Yeah. No,
Getting on
the
that
concept,
and getting on that commuter rail.
the concept is great. I love the idea of restaurants and professional offices, you know, on the first 2 floors.
So we make it happen. We have that authority.
One thing that's happened as a result of this COVID situation, and we hear it almost every day, about people moving out of the city for 2 reasons. One that's not COVID-related, one that is. The non-related one is that a lot of the millennials that have been in the cities, been there because they like the nightlife and they like being in an office space there, and now a little older, getting families, they don't want to live in the city anymore, so they're moving out into the suburbs. The second thing, which is COVID-related, is the fact that now with all this empty office space and people are finding they can work from home, they don't want to go in there anymore. So in terms of looking at what might happen on Main Street, I've been betwixt and between. You and I, Richard, have sort of butted heads on this a little bit.
We have.
Nevertheless,
But it's fun talking about it, isn't it?
nevertheless, it does offer an opportunity, but you can't be blind to the physical restrictions of that entire strip. Meaning, if you look at the lot configuration along that entire strip, from, say, the fire station to the Narrows, in the back, those lots go like this. They're all individually owned. So now you've got to marry that kind of a configuration with somebody that might want to come in and rebuild. And as soon as you go over 50% of the assessed value of any structure that's on Main Street, you're going to tear that whole thing down and build from scratch. Now your costs are going to go up because you're talking about flood zone restrictions. So how you marry all that together, to me, it's not impossible, but it takes some special thinking about it, I think. And if I were involved in it, and I'm not, but if I were, I would attempt to find a couple of developers who have perhaps had experience in restoration of town villages. But if you look at Buzzards Bay, you look at the center of Wareham, you look at the center of Middleborough, they're all the same. Everybody's suffering from the same thing. Everybody moved out because first it was malls. You're going to drive 25 or 30 miles to go to a mall. Now you've got Amazon, you've got all this other stuff where you get your stuff from home. What is going to be the draw? And that's my question that still is up here. What's the draw?
You touched on a good thing, Buzzards Bay. Now, the way it was relayed to me was the people that bought that block bought it with the intentions of tearing it all down and coming out of the ground with new. And then they, wait a minute, you gotta go 8 feet in the air if you're gonna do
Yeah.
that. So they remodeled and refreshed what was there, and it looks nice.
Yeah,
Whether, they have the advantage of having a college campus across the street, which brings traffic in,
right.
and some other amenities there, but you go to a lot of small towns, and all they did really was enhance what they had. I was in an area of Providence a week ago, and the area had been revitalized. There wasn't anything there over 3 stories, and it looked gorgeous.
Yeah.
So why isn't it happening here?
Well, I think one reason is small retail is getting really tough.
It's in Providence and Middleborough and everywhere else too.
Yeah, I
And
don't think
we
you're gonna-
lost our small retail for the most part with the expansion of the banks. Back in the 60s and 70s, all the banks would double their size. Now they don't want these behemoths, but the retail they displaced is gone.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna ever bring retail back. I think that's the wrong approach. If you're gonna revitalize downtown, you're gonna revitalize it with service, dry cleaners and things of that nature, restaurants, lawyers, accountants. Trying to open up a shop and sell something to pay the rent, those days are gone. People just aren't going.
Now, I went into an area in Florida that was beautiful. It was walking like mini village with architects and dentists and things
Right,
like that on
service
the
industry.
first floor. And I'm going, this is floodplain too. How come they can do that here, but we can't do it, It's a beautiful setup. It would lend itself to the old Greer property perfectly, you know? They even had a marina and the ancillary support for that. But you get up here and everybody wants you to build on the moon, you know?
So the last thing I would say is, I've talked to a lot of people about this, and I've had, no, I'm gonna say 40% of them list all the issues with the proposal and what they don't like about it, and what their concerns are. And every one of those people that I talked to, I asked them the same question. I said, what do we do instead? And usually I just get a list of more things that are wrong with the proposal I'm talking about.
Yeah, rather than suggestions on how to make it right.
And sometimes I get to this point, most of the time I don't, but I want to say to them, doing nothing is we're digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper every day by not doing nothing.
Can we, is the town in a position, and maybe working with Serpent, to pick one building and work with that building owner and make an example? What's possible?
I have one better for you. I have a developer out of New Jersey who has local connections. He's looking at 3 parcels downtown and coming up with a concept for redevelopment of those parcels. And we'll see what he has that makes sense in terms of the market.
I mean, if you could work with somebody to get the engine started, where
Isn't it on us to get the engine started?
well, that's what
though?
I'm saying, we partner with them, not so much monetarily, but support-wise, and helping them find, maybe there's grants through.
That's exactly the way to do it, is to partner with a developer
Right.
and work and get the Mass Works grants and whatever else comes through to help make the project
And
happen.
if you can get one building or 3 blocks revitalized without, building a 65-foot building, now,
You think he's gonna do it without a 65-foot building, Ken?
Probably not.
I'd be interested to see what he proposes
And-
before I committed to 65 feet.
But he's not gonna propose until he knows he's got a
He's
town
gotta
that he
have a
wants to.
concept. If you went to him and said, listen, we're considering raising the building height to 65 feet,
I've
how do
been-
you take advantage of it? Tell me what you're thinking.
Michael, I gotta tell you, I've heard 4, 5, 6 of these same proposals at the WRA since I joined it. And they all come up and they all peter out.
What, the developer?
Yeah.
But why?
Why?
Does it all center around 65 feet?
Oh, no.
Okay, so why, so if 65 feet, which is what I heard from the different people, and I heard it from George, and I kind of agree with him to a point. I think it's too high for that downtown. So if 65 feet is not the only reason why these people won't come in, then why tie ourselves to that number? We could always allow 65 feet by special permit, right?
That's what we're doing. That's essentially what happens, is everything is done by special permit. So we control it, and we have performance standards and design guidelines that specify what kind of development can occur.
So if somebody comes in with a proposal and it's at 65 feet and we don't like the look of it, we could turn it away without any legal recourse.
Correct.
And they're not gonna go to the zoning board of appeals and just backdoor it and put it in anyway.
Come on.
Well,
The problem with
with
that,
any special permits, you have to have parameters for which you're granting it.
Yeah.
If you don't have those spelled out with what an applicant has to do to achieve that, you might as well not have it, because they're going to run right over you.
Right.
if you don't condition that to the extent that you suggest gable-style roofs and you suggest maybe some architectural techniques and
New England
visual
style.
aspects that will go along and reflect some of the stuff, the better things that are there.
Yep.
If you don't do that, you're going to get 65 feet of a flat roof every time,
Right.
and a facade that's
last thing
simply
we
straight with nothing else. So if you want to make it look great, then I think you got to go into it a little bit, and don't be afraid to specify those kinds of things.
Standards does
Every
that?
place that's been done,
Yes.
and I'll
too.
pick Mashpee Commons as an example, because they did it through their zoning and did it in that particular case under a special permit. they've got guidelines, and whether you own the lot or whether they build for you, these are the guidelines you use, and you're seeing the results of it. You've got some good, attractive buildings in that spot.
Yeah.
But it's only because the stipulations are there. And I'd like to see it improve too. I think everybody would.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think the idea of letting somebody, as Ken has suggested, come in, just daydream about what they might possibly do. Just forget about the height for now.
Yeah, just, right, what's in your mind?
What's in your vision? What do you see that would be attractive here, that is gonna make you a dollar? Make your tenants or whatever you're gonna have want to be here? What are the visual aspects of it that you see? Put it together, and then lay it out in front of this board and say, here it is.
Charlie, did you read the ULI TAP report? That's exactly what's in there. These were professional developers who volunteered their time,
Yeah.
came to this town.
Yeah.
There's drawings, there's diagrams in there telling us exactly what they think we need to do to revitalize that town. Exactly what you just said. It's in that report. And it matches the economic
think-
development report, it matches the master plan.
And it's in the zoning draft, the way it is right now. There are design guidelines and performance standards that include the architectural features of the development, as well as the use and the activity.
Yeah, but this is all,
And the connections to the street and the activities that are associated
all
with
I'm
those.
trying to say is that you've already touched base with somebody that's got some idea. And I'd like, if I was sitting there and making a decision, being on a board like you guys are, I'd want to see a little bit about what his thoughts are. And
Well,
then
one thing-
begin to design the zoning on the basis of a common thread that runs through not what only he sees, but what you see.
Chicken and egg here. We have to have, we have to
Exactly.
agree on what we want to accept before they'll come in and start spending money on wild ideas.
That's what we heard over and over again.
But-
We have to market ourselves as a town.
I think that's putting the
that's
cart before the
inviting-
horse myself, but.
That's inviting developers to come here, telling them, this is what we want you to do. Does this match with your vision? Holy smokes, it does. This is what they want to do. And this is what this is designed to do. I don't want to see one guy's proposal. I want to see 6 guys' proposals. I want to tell 5 of them to go away, and I want to do this one, because it's the best. And this is a guy that's going to follow the design guidelines and do the New England Village culture and the New England Village architecture. I don't want one. I want that it's,
While this is happening, you also need to concentrate on the existing issues down there.
Yeah.
And it's not old buildings or empty buildings, it's people that want to get off of Main Street because they don't like sending their customers out in the street when the street lights are out. They have to lock their door to Merchant's Way to keep people from coming in and making a mess in their buildings with either cleaning crabs or changing diapers.
Well, I think that,
You can't have your Main Street smelling of urine from homeless people. I know it's a worldwide crisis, but these issues have to be addressed too.
I'm not sure what that has
That's
to do
not
with
here,
this.
but,
Well, yeah, I don't know what that has to do with
I
the
think-
zoning.
I
I
mean,
think
people
to-
like to say Main Street's a mess. Well,
well, see, I think to Ken's point, I think the redevelopment process will cure that on its own. The only other thing that I would see as being a potential problem is just the parking.
Is what?
Parking.
I'd
That's-
love to have a parking problem.
That's gonna be an issue.
you have one now.
No, we don't.
Reading through the proposal, we're reducing the parking standards down to one parking space
Yeah.
per.
Yeah,
That's the minimum that's required. The developer could add more as appropriate.
Where?
In potentially a parking platform down at the train station.
A parking platform, as in like a second story?
Raised?
Yes.
where the fire station is.
See,
If I can get Claire to get that thing moved out of there, then we'll go build a parking garage
a
there.
two-story parking garage in downtown Wareham, I would be an instant no for that.
Great. Well, how are you gonna fix your parking problem?
Never
That's
mind
what I'm
writing us a
saying.
check for 20 million for
I
the station.
I owned condos down in Dennisport that were apartments back in the 50s, and they were deeded one parking spot per condo.
How'd that work?
It didn't. It didn't work at all.
But you know, it's funny, even, everywhere, apartment complexes, 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't a problem. It was 1 car per unit. Now it's 3 cars per unit.
So I read the 2007 parking study pretty closely.
Yeah, I read it too.
2013.
And it didn't
I'm sorry,
really,
right.
it didn't really show where there's any net pickup.
I didn't see a problem there, did you?
Well, one of the problems is
No, I mean, in that parking study.
Right now,
business owners and employees taking the prime
less-
spots.
There's less people working in the village now than there was then.
I understand that, but redevelopment's gonna change that. Where are you gonna put them? And not so much people that are working, but if you've got 2 stories of
Sure,
living,
sure.
and there's a potential for 6 to 8
Sure.
units per story, 2 cars per,
Sure.
because that's the reality, is 2 cars per, regardless of what you set as a design standard. There's no such thing as a 1-car family anymore. It doesn't exist.
Oh, there's,
Unless you're a single man or a single woman.
there's no car families.
Yeah, unless your end result is you can do everything within walking distance.
Live, work, play, baby. Live, work, play.
You're not gonna get that right away. You might get that 5 years down the road.
I'll fix the parking problem when I get a problem. I mean, if I get a parking problem to fix, that means we've done something really good down there. And I'm not gonna go waste my time fixing problems I don't have yet. I'd love to create a parking problem, because that means we're winning. Right now, we're losing. You know, to George's point about before, it's not getting better. It's getting worse. And I haven't heard any alternative solutions. All I've heard from people is don't do it.
No, I think the whole thing is great. The only thing that I had a problem with is the 65 feet. I think the rest of it's fabulous.
What? So what's the right number then?
I don't know what the right number is. I'm not a builder.
Well, let's,
Well, I think if you make it a special permit, then they have to prove to you it's the right number.
special permit sends a message to the builder and the developer, we're gonna make it hard for you. And that's exactly the wrong message we wanna send.
But the other side of the coin is, say this works tremendously,
Yeah?
and you have Main Street up to the sidewalk 65 feet tall. Who's gonna go down there?
Well, the design guidelines specify
Yeah,
against
we're
that.
not going there. The design guidelines are,
I've been here long enough where I've seen things come back and bite us in the fanny.
well, then let's not do anything then. Just sit on our hands and watch the
And
thing.
that's not the answer either.
Well, that's what I'm getting
Is
told.
there any way we can try
Don't
to,
do it my way, then we're not gonna do anything. That's not the right message, Richard.
Tell me the right number.
is there any way we can apply for some grants to help us with some buildings
I mean,
down there?
maybe we need to look at these design criteria closer so we can be comfortable with it. Because that's my only fear. I don't mind somebody coming in, like you say, and trying this, but I don't wanna see it wall to wall that way.
But can't our site plan review, our ZBA process, our planning board process doing this, can't we control that? Isn't that what we're here
Not
for?
unless it's written in there to
No.
give us a standard that we can.
I
that
think
we
the
can-
design standards are quite clear it can't be, it has to be done with New England style architecture, maintaining the culture of the village. It's written in the design standards in that zoning article.
Define the culture.
Yeah, but that could be vinyl siding.
Beauty of it, we get to define it.
Well, if it's not written down and there's not a standard to meet, you're in the same boat as the 65 feet.
I'm not following that, George, but that's okay.
But you're talking about nobody's gonna come in unless they can have 65 feet.
No,
They're also not gonna come in unless they have a clear design and clear standards that they have to meet.
they're pretty well
They
documented.
are. Listen, I've drafted design guidelines for state reports for the state of Massachusetts. And these design guidelines that I put into the bylaw are ones that will be sufficient to control the use and the design of the structures that are proposed.
That's the one thing I've always said about Main Street, is there's no common theme. There's no guide for that.
And-
I said, anybody that's got old pictures, well, if you look at a picture from the 30s, there is kind of a
Well,
old village
Part of
style.
the design guidelines is to look at the context and relate the existing architecture to the proposed in the planning and the layout of the project. So you do have to, with these design guidelines, you do have to look at what's there and figure out how you fit into place in Main Street.
I think where we're at here is that you need to read the article specifically the design guidelines. I gave a one-page summary, a very busy slide highlighting the key points of it. It's 3 pages long, isn't it, Ken?
Something like that.
2 pages, 3 pages?
3 or 4.
Talking about what the design guidelines are. You guys gotta read that. Because with that and site plan review, I think we got it licked. Now, I'm not concerned about 65 feet. I'm concerned about special permits. I'm concerned about sending the message to developers that we're a town that wants to grow, we're a town that wants to turn around our downtown, and we need your help to do it. And I don't want to make you jump through hoops with permits and variances and things like that to do it. I want to partner with you and move forward. And how we message that is not, is with clear-cut zoning that spells out what we want. And that's, I have my WRA hat on. We spent a lot of time working on this.
If you do that, though, you're limiting yourself to whatever you write. Whereas a special permit gives you the ability to adjust that along the way. And there may be some instances where somebody wants something, but because it is a special permit, and you can see right through it and say, no, this isn't going to fly. But if you put it in there as a by right thing and just spell everything out, every application you're going to get is going to go directly by that bylaw, no matter what it says. You're going to be bound by it, unless you force them to go to the ZBA for variance. So I think there's a merit in the special permit application if you're trying to revitalize something that right now is going to take a lot of work to get it to where you really want it to be.
Well, it's already a special permit for site plan. It's just that if you want to focus on the height, that's by right in the special permit.
I'll be honest with you guys, change it to 60 feet, or recommended it be changed, that's fine and well.
I'm not concerned with the number. I just think we should have some control over it. That's,
You guys gotta go read the article in its entirety. I think we should call a meeting for next Monday to do the vote. We give you time, guys, a chance to read it.
does that work for everybody?
It's okay by me. I've already read it once, but I'll read it again just to refresh myself.
Pay particular attention to the design standards. Ken did a lot of work there, and I thought, I think it sets, there's enough guidance there that we can stand behind it and say, you're not meeting our guidance. As it's, at the same time, there's a little bit of flexibility there to work with partner with the developer to get what we want and he wants. At the same time, the site plan review process is there to ensure it happens. But the thing I worry about is, did a developer come in and dot every I and cross every T, and we said no, illegally? That because it didn't get it right. That worries me, and I think the design guidelines that took that away a little bit. I'm not concerned about that. It's very clear to me, but anyway.
And I think you have to elaborate on more what you don't want. Because that's where you're,
Think about the message. Think about the message you're sending the developer.
you're telling them what to design to. And
Yeah, well-
we've talked a lot about
Right now, I'm
theories in architecture and this and that, and,
trying to attract them, not scare them away.
well,
Just gonna make sure we attract the right stuff, because once it's built, we own it.
Yeah, that's true.
The developer goes and
Yeah.
buys his condo in
Yeah.
Boca, and we're here with what's left. And-
That's
and
why
you
I'm
know,
on this board too, Michael.
You're talking about, making sure that the design standards meet a New England architectural theme, but then in the next breath, you're talking about a two-level parking garage to solve a parking problem.
With shingles.
Well, there's nothing New
It'll
England about a
have
two-level
shingles,
parking
Michael.
garage.
well, I'm thinking the the cost of a two-level parking garage, you can't possibly put enough rental over that in downtown Wareham to pay for it.
I understand.
There's not even room enough to build a two-level parking garage. You need as much area to make that second level as you do for the garage itself.
Put it in right after the monorail.
Put the ones that I used to go to Tokyo for business, and they have, you drive your car into a metal cage, and it goes up
Yeah, they have elevators.
and overs.
Yep.
And then
Selling cars now.
it's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Keep that.
Yeah,
You'll have to wait a minute, your car's on the bottom.
fell out of its hole. All right, well, I'm up for,
Is everybody good for Monday night?
yep, I'm good.
Yep.
Yeah, I wanna get this right. I mean, this is too important to compromise without fully understanding the ramifications.
We're gonna do
No.
that as a workshop or a special meeting?
Combination, workshop, special meeting.
It'll have to be, yeah, it'll have to be a meeting because we're gonna have to.
We've got enough time to post it.
Yeah, it'll be posted. The train left the station, sorry.
So, let me be
With-
let's be real clear, though. This board can't change that article, can it?
It can recommend changes in the
You can
article.
recommend changes and vote whether, or do you vote? I'm asking for education.
You want to have that article as hard and fast, so that when it goes into the warrant, it is what you want. So that you're not changing anything on town meeting floor. That's something that we don't want to do, is have somebody amending on the floor of town meeting.
Understood.
We want to have it clear as mud, or, whatever.
So, if we
don't
Where
wanna
we're
be-
at right now.
So,
We don't wanna
let me
see
Let me
people-
do a sidebar here for a minute. We need to talk at WRA Thursday and talk about the feedback that we're getting about 65 feet and harden this thing up and decide what the WRA is gonna go forward with, to the point where you guys, on this board here, knows what they're voting on next Monday, whether they support it or not, and what recommendations of change they want, I would think.
We don't want to see any typos corrected the night of town meeting.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, you're afraid of her. I gotta live down the street from her.
So we're gonna do next Monday here,
Go buy a
the
house every day.
21st?
Huh? Twice.
Is that on the town website, or is that gonna get emailed to us?
The article is on the town meeting website.
All right.
I mean, the planning board website.
20th, not 21st.
Next Monday?
No, it is the 21st, right, sorry.
It's the 21st.
21st, 6 to 8, right?
Sounds right.
Good discussion. Really
That's
good.
important.
It is important.
If something happens, we want to make sure it's what everybody wants.
Yeah, we wanna make sure we have control over it.
I say, everybody likes to put forward the fear of coming in for site plan, but I think we've been on the positive side of site plan, trying to improve projects rather than worsen them.
Yeah, rather than hinder them. And we can send that
Some
message
people
out.
can take that criticism, some can't.
Are we done, George?
Entertain a motion to adjourn, George?
Would.
Second.
Any discussion?
None.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned at 8:45.